I need freedom. That's exactly what she said. Not yelled. Not crying. Calm. Controlled. Like she'd rehearsed it in the mirror and finally nailed the delivery. We were standing in our kitchen, 10 feet apart, and the distance felt permanent. She crossed her arms and looked at me like I was an inconvenience she'd already outgrown. I laughed at first, not because it was funny, but because my brain refused to accept what my ears had just heard. Freedom from what? From me? From the life we built? From the vows she once cried through? She rolled her eyes. Actually rolled them. See? This is why. You make everything heavy. I just want to feel free again. In that moment, something snapped. Not loudly. Quietly. Like a switch flipping off. I asked her what freedom meant. She sighed like I was slow. I don't want to explain myself anymore. I don't want expectations. I don't want to feel owned. Owned. That word landed like a slap. I told her I wasn't trying to cage her. That I just wanted honesty. Connection. Loyalty. She smirked and said, "You're acting insecure. That's your issue, not mine." That's when I saw it. The absence. No guilt. No hesitation. No concern that she was ripping something apart in real time. She wasn't fighting for us. She was negotiating her exit while making me feel like the problem. She added casually, "I'm still here, aren't I? You should be grateful." Grateful. Standing there, I realized this wasn't a phase or a bad week. This was clarity. She didn't want freedom with me. She wanted freedom from me. Without consequences, without blame, without looking like the villain. And right then, I understood something painful and final. If she needed freedom so badly, she was about to get all of it. Just not the way she expected. Before all of this, if you'd asked anyone about our marriage, they would have said we were solid. Not flashy. Not Instagram perfect. Just stable. We met in our mid-20s, built a routine, bought furniture together, argued about paint colors and weekend plans like normal couples do. She used to say she liked how grounded I was, that I made her feel safe. I handled the boring stuff, bills, planning, responsibility, so she could breathe. At the time, that felt like a partnership, like balance. I wasn't controlling. I didn't check her phone. I didn't question her friendships. I trusted her completely, mostly because she always told me how much she hated drama and messy people. She positioned herself as above all that. Looking back, I realized I was doing most of the emotional labor. I was the one initiating conversations, fixing tension, apologizing first even when I didn't fully understand what I'd done wrong. I thought that was what commitment looked like, choosing peace over ego. We still laughed, still slept in the same bed, still made future plans. But there was a subtle shift I ignored. She stopped asking about my day, stopped sharing hers in detail. Conversations became surface level, transactional. I told myself this was normal. Long-term relationships settle. Passion evolves. Everyone says that. What I didn't see, what I refused to see, was that while I was maintaining the relationship, she was slowly detaching from it. And I was the last one to notice. The changes didn't come all at once. That's what made them easy to dismiss. She started guarding her phone like it was classified information. Screen always face down. Notifications suddenly silenced. If I walked into the room while she was texting, she'd tilt the phone away without even realizing she was doing it. When I asked who she was talking to, I'd get vague answers. Just people. Group chat. Work stuff. She used to tell me everything. Now I got summaries. Edited versions. Her schedule changed too. Random late nights. Drinks after work that somehow stretched past midnight. Weekends where she was too tired to do anything with me, but had plenty of energy to go out with friends. If I looked disappointed, she'd sigh like I was a burden. I noticed the tone shift before the behavior fully clicked. She became sharper, less patient. Small questions felt like interrogations to her. If I asked why plans changed, I was controlling. If I said I missed her, I was clingy. If I pointed out distance, I was overthinking. So I stopped bringing things up. I told myself she was stressed, that work was draining her, that this phase would pass if I didn't push. I started walking on eggshells, choosing silence over conflict, because every conversation felt like I was annoying her just by existing. The weirdest part was how confident she became in dismissing me, like she already knew she had the upper hand, like she wasn't afraid of losing me anymore. At the time, I thought it meant she felt secure. Now I know better. That confidence wasn't comfort. It was detachment. Looking back now, the red flags weren't subtle. I just worked overtime convincing myself they were something else. She stopped inviting me into her world. I'd hear about events after they happened. New co-workers I never met. Stories that didn't quite line up with timelines. When I asked simple follow-up questions, she'd get defensive fast, like I was accusing her of something instead of just trying to understand her life. There was also this new habit of rewriting history in real time. She'd say something harsh, then deny she ever said it. She'd agree to plans, cancel last minute, and somehow make it my fault for assuming. If I tried to hold her to her own words, she'd laugh and tell me I was remembering it wrong. I explained it away as stress. She became obsessed with independence in a way that felt performative. Suddenly everything was my money, my time, my life. Not in a healthy way, but like she was drawing lines. If I paid for dinner, she'd make a comment about not needing a provider. If I offered help, she'd snap that she wasn't helpless. Yet she had no problem relying on me when it was convenient. Another flag I ignored was how she talked about other men. Not flirting exactly, but admiration that felt unnecessary. He's so confident. He really listens. He's emotionally mature. Always framed as observations, never compliments, but always comparisons. And I always came up short. When I told her it bothered me, she accused me of insecurity. Said I should work on myself instead of policing her thoughts. I apologized. Again, she also started testing boundaries in small ways. Coming home later than promised. Canceling important things we planned together. Withholding affection, then acting surprised when I noticed. If I asked what was wrong, she'd shrug and say, "I'm just not feeling it lately." I told myself dry spells happen. Distance happens. Marriages go through phases. What I didn't want to admit was that I felt like an option in my own relationship. Like she was slowly unhooking herself while keeping me around as a safety net. Every instinct in me said something was wrong. But I kept choosing the version of reality that hurt less in the moment. I didn't realize then that explaining away red flags doesn't make them disappear. It just delays the impact. The first real suspicion didn't hit me like a lightning bolt. It crept in quietly, the kind of thought you try to swat away because once it lands, nothing feels safe anymore. It was a Tuesday night. Ordinary. Boring. I came home later than usual, expecting her to already be in bed. Instead, the apartment was dark, silent, and wrong. No music. No television. Just her phone buzzing on the kitchen counter like it had something urgent to say. I wasn't snooping. I want that clear. The screen lit up on its own. A name I didn't recognize. A message preview I couldn't unread. "Did you get home safe?" I keep replaying last night. My stomach dropped so hard I thought I might throw up. I stood there staring at the phone like it might explain itself if I waited long enough. My brain immediately jumped into damage control mode. Coworker. Friend. Inside joke. Anything but what it looked like. When she finally walked in 20 minutes later, she froze when she saw me holding the phone. Not angry. Not confused. Nervous. "What's that?" she asked too quickly. I handed it to her and said nothing. Just watched her face. She laughed. Actually laughed. Told me I was being dramatic. Said it was a colleague who talks weird. Claimed the message was about a group hangout I wasn't invited to because you don't like those people anyway. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But something shifted in that moment. Not because of the message, because of how fast the lie came. How practiced. How little effort she put into making it convincing. That night, she rolled away from me in bed and fell asleep instantly. I lay there staring at the ceiling, replaying every recent moment with new eyes. Late nights. Short answers. Deflection. That sense that I was slowly being edited out of my own marriage. For the first time, I didn't tell myself I was crazy. For the first time, I thought, what if I'm not imagining this? And once that question entered my head, there was no going back. I didn't turn into some paranoid detective overnight. It was quieter than that. Colder. I just stopped filling in the blanks for her. I started noticing patterns instead of excuses. Her phone was suddenly always face down. Notifications silenced. If it buzzed, she'd pick it up instantly, like a reflex. Not to check the message, to make sure I didn't see it. When I asked who she was talking to, she'd say no one in that flat tone that really means don't push this. She began showering the moment she got home. Not after dinner. Not later. Immediately. Long showers. Locked door. Steam and distance. When I joked about it, she snapped that she was allowed to have privacy. I watched how she dressed when she went out now. Not for me. For something else. Extra effort. New underwear I never saw come off. Perfume on days she claimed she was just running errands. The biggest change wasn't physical, though. It was emotional. She stopped reacting to me. Compliments bounced off. Concerns annoyed her. If I was quiet, she didn't ask why. If I was upset, she called it my mood. It was like she'd already checked out, but forgot to tell me. I tested small things. Asked where she'd been. Asked who she was with. Nothing aggressive. Just normal husband questions. Her answers were fast, vague, and inconsistent. Times didn't line up. Stories changed slightly depending on when I asked. When I pointed that out, she flipped it back on me. Why are you interrogating me? You never used to be like this. This is why I need space. That's when I realized something uncomfortable. She wasn't worried about being caught. She was annoyed that I was paying attention. From that moment on, I stopped arguing. I stopped defending myself. I stopped trying to convince her I wasn't crazy. I just watched. And the more I watched, the clearer it became. Whatever was happening in my marriage no longer involved me. I was just the obstacle she hadn't figured out how to remove yet. Once I started paying attention, the lies stopped being subtle. They weren't clever. They were lazy, like she assumed I wouldn't bother connecting them. She said she was working late, but her paycheck didn't change. Said she met coworkers I'd never heard of, yet somehow remembered all their personal drama. Claimed she was exhausted from stress, but came home energized, almost buzzing, like she'd just left somewhere exciting. One night, she told me she was at dinner with her friend Megan. I didn't react, just nodded. 2 days later, Megan casually mentioned she hadn't seen my wife in weeks. When I brought it up, my wife didn't miss a beat. Oh, I meant Sarah? I mixed them up. She never mixed them up before. Her stories had a strange rhythm. Confident at first, then defensive if I stayed quiet. If I asked a follow-up question, she'd sigh loudly, roll her eyes, and accuse me of turning everything into a problem. You're really reaching, she'd say. Why are you so obsessed with catching me in something? This is exactly why I need freedom. Freedom. That word again. Always used like a shield. The biggest lie wasn't in her words. It was in her reactions. Honest people get confused when questioned. She got angry. Honest people try to reassure. She tried to shut me down. I noticed how quickly she deleted messages. How calls ended the second I entered a room. How she'd suddenly need to run out after dinner with vague urgency. When I stayed calm, she got nervous. When I didn't accuse her, she accused me instead. That's when it clicked. The lies weren't meant to convince me. They were meant to exhaust me. To make me doubt my memory, my instincts, my right to ask questions. And the scariest part? They almost worked. I didn't find lipstick on a collar. I didn't catch her in a bed that wasn't ours. What I found was worse, because it explained everything. It happened on a Tuesday night. She was in the shower, phone buzzing nonstop on the bathroom counter. I wasn't snooping. I wasn't even curious at first. But the screen lit up again and again with the same name. Evan. Not a coworker. Not a family member. Just a first name. Casual. Familiar. The message preview popped up before the screen went dark. I hate that I can't fall asleep without talking to you. My stomach dropped. I stood there longer than I should have, staring at that locked screen like it might blink and tell me I was wrong. It didn't. Another message came through. Today was rough. Thanks for being there for me. Being there. That phrase used to describe me. When she came out of the shower, wrapped in a towel, humming like nothing in the world was wrong, I didn't confront her. I watched. I watched her grab the phone, smile without realizing it, then freeze when she noticed me looking. Who's Evan? I asked calm. Too calm. Her smile vanished instantly. Why? That was answer enough. She said he was just a friend. Said they talked because he understood her. Said I was making it weird. Said I should stop reading into things. But I didn't need the rest of the messages. I didn't need proof of sex, hotels, or dates. I already knew. She was sharing her fears with him, her frustrations with me, her dreams, her doubts, her emotional energy. She wasn't cheating physically, not yet. But she had already left the marriage. And standing there, listening to her explain why this wasn't a big deal, I realized something devastating. I wasn't her partner anymore. I was just the guy paying half the bills while someone else got the best parts of her. That was the moment the last illusion broke. I didn't plan the confrontation. It just happened. Sharp, messy, and irreversible. I waited until the next evening. She was on the couch, phone in hand, scrolling like nothing had changed. Like I hadn't just watched our marriage bleed out in real time. We need to talk, I said. She sighed. Not worried. Annoyed. Like I was interrupting something unimportant. About Evan, I continued. Her body tensed for half a second before she recovered. That was the tell. The same one she accused me of imagining every other time. I told you, he's just a friend, she said. Why are you still stuck on this? I sat across from her. Come again. To come again. Friends don't replace husbands, I said. Friends don't get the parts of you I don't anymore. She rolled her eyes. Actually rolled them. You're being insecure, she snapped. I'm allowed to have connections outside of you. Connections. Not boundaries. Not respect. Just freedom. So when did I stop matching? I asked. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she crossed her arms and leaned back, like she was preparing for a debate she'd already decided she'd won. I need space, she said. I need emotional freedom. You don't own me. That word again. Freedom. I'm not asking to own you, I replied. I'm asking why you're giving someone else what used to be ours. She stood up then, pacing, voice rising. Because he listens. Because he doesn't judge me. Because with him I don't feel trapped. Trapped. I realized in that moment she wasn't defending herself. She was justifying leaving, without having to feel guilty. And when I asked the question that mattered most, do you have feelings for him? She didn't say no. She said, it's not that simple. That was the moment I knew the confrontation wasn't about saving anything. It was about watching her choose. Once the words were out, she switched tactics fast. I never said I cheated, she told me, arms crossed, voice suddenly calm. Too calm. You're jumping to conclusions like you always do. Always. That word again, the one she used to rewrite history. So late-night calls, deleted messages, emotional confessions, that's nothing? I asked. She laughed. A short, dismissive sound. You're exaggerating. You've been paranoid for months. Maybe you should ask yourself why. There it was. The pivot. From her actions to my flaws. You're insecure, she continued. You don't trust me. That's the real problem here. I felt my chest tighten. I had trusted her. Blindly. For years. And now she was using that trust against me, framing my awareness as weakness. I didn't do anything wrong, she said. I was honest about needing freedom. You're the one making it ugly. Freedom again. Always freedom. Never responsibility. When I brought up specific things she'd said to him, things she'd never said to me, she shrugged. I was venting. You don't listen the way he does. So now it was my fault she turned elsewhere. And if the roles were reversed? I asked. If I was sharing that kind of intimacy with another woman? She didn't hesitate. That's different. Of course it was. You're trying to control me, she said. You want ownership, not partnership. I realized then she wasn't confused. She was rehearsed. Every excuse polished. Every lie layered on top of another. Just convincing enough to keep me doubting myself. But something had changed. Her words weren't hurting like before. They were exposing her. I didn't break down all at once. It came in waves. First there was anger. Hot, shaky, useless. Then disbelief, like my brain kept trying to rewind the conversation and find the moment where this could still make sense. And when that failed, something heavier settled in. I sat alone on the edge of the bed long after she went silent, staring at the wall like it might explain how I got here. I felt stupid. Not weak, stupid. For trusting explanations that never added up. For swallowing discomfort because it was easier than conflict. For confusing patience with loyalty. My body reacted before my mind caught up. My hands were trembling. My stomach felt hollow, like I hadn't eaten in days even though I had. My chest hurt in that dull, constant way that doesn't scream but never shuts up. I realized I had been grieving for a while without knowing it. Grieving the version of her I thought I was married to. Grieving the future I kept defending in my head every time something felt wrong. The worst part wasn't that she might have given herself to someone else emotionally. It was that she watched me struggle and felt nothing. No guilt. No fear of losing me. No urgency to fix anything. I remembered all the nights I stayed quiet so we wouldn't fight. All the times I apologized just to keep peace. All the moments I told myself, this is what commitment looks like. Sitting there, it finally clicked. Commitment without respect isn't love. It's slow self-erasure. I wasn't collapsing because I was losing her. I was collapsing because I finally saw how much of myself I had already lost trying to keep her. The decision didn't come with a dramatic speech or a slammed door. It came quietly, almost calmly, and that's how I knew it was real. I woke up the next morning after barely sleeping, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel the urge to fix anything. No need to explain myself. No need to ask questions I already knew the answers to. I made coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and realized something terrifying and liberating at the same time. I was done negotiating my own worth. I thought about all the times I tried to earn basic decency, all the emotional labor I poured in just to be tolerated, all the excuses I made for someone who kept telling me, in different ways, that she didn't care if I stayed or left. And suddenly, the fog cleared. If she needed freedom so badly, I wasn't going to cage myself just to keep her comfortable. I didn't announce it. I didn't threaten. I didn't beg for understanding. I simply stopped chasing. I stopped asking where she was going. Stopped checking my phone. Stopped shaping my behavior around her moods. That was the decision. Not revenge. Not punishment. Withdrawal. I understood then that walking away doesn't always mean leaving the house. Sometimes it means emotionally stepping back and letting the truth stand on its own. And the truth was simple. A relationship where one person demands freedom while the other carries all the responsibility is already over. The aftermath wasn't loud. It was unsettlingly quiet. Once I stopped engaging, the atmosphere in the house changed almost immediately. Not peaceful, tense. Like the silence after something breaks and no one wants to acknowledge the sound it made. She noticed first. At the beginning, she acted annoyed. Started making little comments. Asked why I was being cold, why I was checked out. I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I just answered politely and kept my distance. That seemed to bother her more than any fight ever had. A few days later, the tone shifted. She became confused, then defensive, then oddly sweet. Small gestures appeared out of nowhere. Questions about my day, casual touches, forced normalcy. It felt rehearsed. I realized something uncomfortable. My silence was the first consequence she'd faced. Without my reactions, she had nothing to push against. No validation. No proof that she still mattered enough to hurt me. And that scared her. I could see it in the way she watched me when she thought I wasn't looking. In how she lingered, waiting for me to re-engage, to ask, to care. But I didn't. Not because I was playing a game, but because I finally understood the rules had always been one-sided. The more I withdrew, the more exposed the truth became. Not about me, about her. She wasn't used to freedom without attention. She wasn't prepared for independence without backup. And I wasn't angry anymore. I was clear. That clarity changed everything. Acceptance didn't arrive like relief. It came quietly, almost unnoticed, the way exhaustion settles in after a long fight you didn't realize you'd stopped fighting. I stopped wondering what she was doing when she stayed out late. Stopped checking my phone for explanations that never came. Stopped replaying conversations in my head, looking for the moment I could have said something different. Distance grew naturally once I let go of the need to understand her. We lived in the same space, but our lives no longer overlapped. Different schedules, different rooms, different silences. She tried a few times to pull me back in. Casual questions, half-hearted jokes, reminders of us. I responded calmly, respectfully, and without emotion. That distance wasn't punishment. It was protection. I accepted something I'd resisted for too long. She wasn't confused, damaged, or misunderstood. She was simply someone who wanted freedom without responsibility, attention without accountability. And I was done paying that cost. The more I accepted reality, the less power it had over me. Her mood stopped dictating mine. Her words stopped cutting deep. I wasn't numb. I was grounded. For the first time in a long while, I felt steady. Not hopeful. Not bitter. Just clear. Distance, I learned, isn't always about leaving. Sometimes it's about finally standing still while someone else drifts out of your life. I used to think loyalty meant endurance. Staying quiet. Swallowing disrespect because walking away felt like failure. I was wrong. Loyalty without respect isn't love, it's self-erasure. When she said she needed freedom, she wasn't asking for space to heal or grow. She was asking for permission to stop caring while still being supported. And the moment I stopped offering that support, the truth became painfully clear. What I learned is simple, but it cost me years to understand. When someone tells you they owe you nothing, believe them the first time. Don't argue. Don't negotiate. Don't explain your worth. Real partnership doesn't require convincing someone to stay. Real love doesn't come with threats of leaving. And self-respect begins the moment you stop begging for basic decency. If you're reading this and recognizing pieces of your own life, hear this clearly. Choosing yourself is not abandonment. It's survival. She asked for freedom. I gave her solitude. And in that silence, I finally found peace.